Hello there, and welcome to another journey through the corridors of history. I'm here to guide you through the daily rhythms of ancient Rome, not the Rome of marble statues and dramatic Senate speeches that fill Hollywood movies, but the Rome of ordinary people doing ordinary things, eating breakfast, going to work, complaining about their neighbours, and trying to get a decent night's sleep in apartments with walls so thin you could hear your neighbours' philosophical debates about whether the gods really care if you forget to leave offerings. Go ahead and dim those lights now. Get comfortable, pull that blanket up to wherever it feels right, and let your head sink into the pillow. We're going to spend the next couple of hours wandering through the streets of Republican Rome, from its muddy beginnings around 753 BCE, all the way through to Julius Caesar's rise to power. But don't worry about remembering dates or taking notes. This isn't a history exam, this is just us, having a quiet conversation about what it was really like to wake up in ancient Rome when your biggest concerns were whether the bread would be fresh, whether your upstairs neighbour would finally fix that leak in his floor that's been dripping on your head for 3 months, and whether you could make it through another day of back-breaking work without your back actually breaking. Tonight, we're particularly interested in the lives of regular folks, the plebeians who worked with their hands, the soldiers who marched across continents in sandals that would make modern hikers weep, and the families who somehow managed to raise children, run businesses, and maintain friendships in a world where indoor plumbing was a luxury and artificial lighting meant burning expensive oil that made your eyes water. So close your eyes if you'd like, or keep them open, whatever feels more comfortable. We're about to step back over 2,000 years, to a time when the biggest city in the known world was still figuring out how to feed everyone, keep everyone reasonably clean, and prevent the apartment buildings from falling down. It's a world that's both completely alien to our modern experience and strangely familiar in all the ways that humans have always been human, worried about money, annoyed by politics, and perpetually convinced that things were better in the old days. Let's begin our journey in the early morning mist, rising over 7 hills beside a river, in a place where people are just starting to realize they might be building something that will last a very, very long time. Picture, if you will, the sun rising over 7 hills beside the Tiber River, casting long shadows across a city that doesn't yet know it will one day rule the known world. This is Rome in its infancy, around 753 BCE, though the Romans themselves would later insist on this precise date with the kind of bureaucratic certainty that only Romans could muster. The morning mist clings to the marshy valleys between the hills, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows, probably owned by a farmer who has no idea his descendants will be arguing about land redistribution and grain subsidies in the Forum centuries from now. The earliest Romans were, frankly, not much to look at. They were a collection of Latin-speaking farmers, shepherds, and the occasional bandit clustered around these hills for the simple reason that hills are harder to attack and the river provides water. Imagine waking up in one of these early settlements, in a rectangular hut made of mud brick and thatch, where the most advanced technology in your possession is perhaps an iron plow tip, if you're lucky, or more likely a wooden one hardened in fire. Your day begins before dawn because artificial lighting consists of oil lamps that are expensive and smoky, and you'll need every moment of daylight to survive. The head of your household, the paterfamilias, has absolute power over everyone under his roof, including the right to sell family members into slavery or execute them if he sees fit. This sounds harsh until you realize that in practice, most Roman fathers were probably too busy worrying about the harvest or the neighbors across the river to exercise these dramatic powers. Your morning meal, if you have one, consists of bread or porridge made from spelt or emmer wheat, perhaps some cheese if the goats have been cooperative, and water mixed with wine, because clean water is always a gamble, and wine helps kill whatever microscopic terrors might be lurking in your cup. The men of the family head out to work the fields, which means walking behind oxen with wooden plows, scattering seeds by hand, and hoping the gods are paying attention to your offerings. The women manage the household, spin wool, weave cloth, and supervise the children and slaves, if the family is prosperous enough to own any. Children, incidentally, are not the protected, celebrated beings they would become in later centuries. Roman children are expected to contribute to the household economy as soon as they can walk steadily, and their childhood ends abruptly around age 14 for boys, earlier for girls. But here's where it gets interesting, in that peculiarly Roman way. These simple farmers and herders have developed something that will prove far more powerful than their bronze swords or wooden shields. They've created a system of reciprocal obligation that binds the community together like iron bands around a barrel. When your neighbor's house burns down, you help rebuild it, not out of pure altruism, but because next time it might be your house and you'll need his help. When the harvest fails, those who have surplus share with those who don't, creating debts and favors that stretch across generations. This system of mutual obligation relation, of client and patron, of favor and debt, becomes the invisible architecture that holds Roman society together, even as it grows from a collection of mud huts into a city, and then from a city into an empire that spans continents. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For now, picture that farmer walking behind his ox, watching the furrows turn over the dark earth, completely unaware that his great-great-grandson will be watching gladiators fight to the death in a marble amphitheatre paid for with gold stolen from Gaul. The early Roman calendar is a masterpiece of confusion, with months that change length depending on political convenience and a year that starts in March because that's when the fighting season begins. Winter is for mending tools, repairing houses, and telling stories around fires that must never be allowed to die completely, because starting a new fire involves rubbing sticks together for an embarrassingly long time. The Romans worship a pantheon of gods borrowed enthusiastically from their neighbours, the Etruscans, who in turn borrowed them from the Greeks, creating a theological telephone game where Jupiter ends up suspiciously similar to Zeus, but with better organisational skills and a more practical attitude towards smiting. Religious observance in early Rome is less about personal spirituality and more about maintaining the Pax Deorum, the peace with the gods, through correct ritual performance. Get the words wrong during a sacrifice, and you have to start over. Sneeze at the wrong moment during an augury, and the whole ceremony is invalidated. The Romans approach religion with the same methodical precision they'll later bring to road construction and tax collection, because if there's one thing Romans understand, it's that details matter, especially when dealing with supernatural beings who might flood your fields or send a plague if you accidentally face the wrong direction during a prayer. As decades pass and the settlement grows, the simple mud huts give way to more substantial homes built of stone and timber. The population increases through birth, immigration, and the occasional wholesale absorption of neighbouring tribes who have been convinced, through either diplomacy or superior swordwork, that joining Rome is preferable to fighting Rome. These new Romans bring their own gods, customs, and skills, creating a cultural mixing bowl that would make modern multiculturalists weep with joy, except that everyone is expected to adopt Roman ways, or at least not interfere with Roman business. The transition from monarchy to republic happens, according to Roman historians writing centuries later, because the last king, Tarquin the Proud, was an insufferable tyrant whose son committed an unforgivable crime against a virtuous Roman matron named Lucretia. The reality was probably more mundane, involving taxes and trade rights and the sort of political maneuvering that would make modern campaign managers nod in recognition. But the Romans, who love a good story almost as much as they love a well-organized legion, prefer the version with clear heroes and villains, and a moral lesson about the dangers of absolute power. The Roman Republic that emerges from this revolution is, frankly, a political scientist's nightmare and a historian's delight. Imagine trying to explain to a visiting dignitary that Rome is governed by two consuls who serve for 1 year and can veto each other's decisions, advised by a senate that technically has no legal authority but enormous practical power, subject to assemblies of citizens who vote in groups rather than as individuals, overseen by various magistrates with names like praetor and aedile and quaestor, and supervised by censors who can destroy your political career by noting in their official records that you once wore an inappropriate toga to a funeral. The system works through a combination of tradition, personal relationships, and the ever-present threat that if you push too hard against the established order, someone will arrange for you to have an unfortunate accident involving a flight of stairs or a case of food poisoning. Roman politics is less about ideology and more about family connections, personal loyalty, and the kind of favors that are repaid across generations. A senator's son expects to become a senator not because of his qualifications, but because his father helped another senator's father win a case in court 30 years ago, and debts like that compound interest over time. For the ordinary Roman citizen, the plebeian who works with his hands and sleeps in a tenement apartment that would horrify modern building inspectors, the political machinations of the elite might as well be happening on another planet. Your day begins in the pre-dawn darkness, not because you're an early riser by nature, but because Roman apartment buildings are built with all the structural integrity of a house of cards and approximately the same fire safety standards. The ground floor is reserved for shops and businesses, the second floor for the wealthy, and each floor above becomes progressively cheaper, more crowded, and more likely to collapse without warning. Your apartment, if we can dignify it with that term, consists of 1 or 2 rooms that you share with your family and possibly a few strangers who split the rent. There's no running water above the ground floor, no heating except for small charcoal braziers that fill the room with smoke and occasionally set the building on fire, and the toilet facilities consist of a communal latrine down the street that you share with several hundred of your closest neighbours. Privacy is a concept for the wealthy. Everyone else learns to conduct their personal business within earshot and often within sight of complete strangers. Your morning routine begins with a breakfast that would depress a modern nutritionist. Bread, if you can afford it, or a thin gruel made from whatever grain is cheapest at the moment. You might have some olives, a piece of cheese, or a drink of water mixed with enough wine to kill the bacteria, but not enough to impair your judgment before the workday begins. The bread, incidentally, is often adulterated with whatever the baker can find to stretch the flour, including ground beans, sawdust, and occasionally chalk, leading to the kind of digestive issues that Romans accept as part of life, like bad weather or corrupt magistrates. Work for the urban plebeian might involve construction, since Rome is constantly building new temples, markets, apartment blocks, and public works that require enormous amounts of manual labour. Imagine spending your days hauling stone blocks that weigh more than you do, mixing mortar that burns your hands, and climbing scaffolding that consists of ropes and wooden planks lashed together by someone who learned construction techniques from his grandfather and never bothered to question whether there might be better ways to keep workers from falling to their deaths. Construction work in Rome is dangerous in ways that would shut down modern job sites instantly. Workers regularly fall from heights, are crushed by falling stones, or develop lung diseases from breathing stone dust and lime mortar. There are no safety regulations, no workers' compensation, and no concept that employers have any responsibility for employee welfare beyond paying wages and occasionally providing a funeral if the death was particularly spectacular. Alternatively, you might work in one of the many shops that line the streets of Rome, selling everything from bread to bronze pots to imported silk that costs more than most people earn in a year. Shop work involves long hours, standing on your feet, and dealing with customers who range from reasonable citizens trying to feed their families to drunk aristocrats who think that buying a loaf of bread entitles them to recite their political opinions at length. The rhythm of Roman commerce follows patterns that would be familiar to anyone who has worked retail in any era. Morning brings the serious customers who know what they want and have money to pay for it. Midday brings the browsers and the hagglers, people who treat shopping as entertainment and social interaction. Evening brings the desperate, the drunk, and the occasional thief who thinks that darkness provides better cover than it actually does in a city where everyone knows everyone else's business. Roman shopkeepers develop the same skills as their modern counterparts: the ability to spot a troublemaker from across the street, the diplomatic talent needed to refuse credit without starting a fight, and the psychological resilience required to smile politely at customers who are clearly testing the limits of human patience. The major difference is that Roman shopkeepers also need to know which customers have powerful patrons who might take offense if their clients are treated with insufficient respect, because crossing the wrong person can result in anything from harassment by local thugs to mysterious legal troubles that destroy your business and your reputation. If you're fortunate enough to have learned a skilled trade, your daily experience is somewhat better, but comes with its own challenges. Roman craftsmen organize themselves into collegia, trade associations that function as part labor union, part social club, part religious brotherhood, and part mutual insurance company. The collegia regulate prices, maintain quality standards, provide assistance to members who fall ill or die, and organize the festivals and banquets that make working life bearable. A Roman blacksmith, for instance, begins his day by checking the fire in his forge, which burns constantly because rekindling it is time-consuming and wasteful. He'll spend the morning working on routine items: nails, horseshoes, kitchen knives, and the 1,000 small iron objects that keep Roman civilization functioning. The afternoon might be devoted to more complex work: weapons for soldiers, tools for farmers, or decorative items for wealthy customers who can afford to pay premium prices for superior craftsmanship. The blacksmith's workshop is a place of controlled chaos, with half-finished projects hanging from every available surface, raw materials stacked in corners, and an apprentice or two learning the trade through a combination of observation, practice, and occasional burns that serve as memorable reminders about the importance of paying attention. The air is thick with smoke and the sound of hammering metal, punctuated by the hiss of hot iron meeting water and the colourful vocabulary that blacksmiths develop when dealing with difficult customers or stubborn materials. Working with fire and molten metal in a city built largely of wood and thatch requires constant vigilance. Roman buildings burn with alarming regularity, and blacksmiths, bakers, and other tradespeople who work with fire are always conscious that one moment of inattention could destroy not only their own livelihood, but their entire neighborhood. Fire brigades consist of bucket chains and prayers to the gods, supplemented by the occasional decision to tear down buildings in the fire's path, creating fire breaks at the cost of someone's home or business. The Roman military system transforms the plebeian citizen into something unprecedented in the ancient world, a professional soldier whose loyalty belongs not to a tribal chief or a local warlord, but to the Roman state itself. Military service, initially limited to citizens who could afford their own equipment, becomes both a duty and an opportunity for social advancement that shapes the character of Roman society for centuries. The transformation begins with the census, a regular accounting of Roman citizens that determines not only who owes military service, but where they fit in the complex hierarchy of Roman society. Citizens are divided into classes based on their property holdings, from the wealthy equites who can afford horses and the finest armor, down to the capite censi, the head count, who own virtually nothing but still carry the rights and responsibilities of Roman citizenship. This system creates a military that reflects Roman social structure, while also providing a pathway for advancement that doesn't exist in most ancient societies. Imagine receiving your call-up notice, delivered by a government official who shows up at your door or workplace with all the bureaucratic authority that Romans can muster. You're expected to report for service immediately, bringing whatever equipment you can afford and prepared to serve for as long as the state requires, which might be a single campaign season or several years, depending on Rome's military needs and your particular talents. The Roman military camp, the castra, represents Roman organizational genius at its most impressive. Every camp, whether temporary or permanent, follows the same standardized layout, so that a soldier from any legion can navigate any Roman camp in complete darkness. The Principia, or headquarters, occupies the center, surrounded by the tents or barracks of the officers, with the common soldiers arranged in neat rows that reflect their unit organization. The entire camp is surrounded by a ditch and earthwork topped with a wooden palisade, creating a fortified position that can be constructed in a few hours by experienced legionaries. Daily life in a Roman military camp follows a routine that would impress modern drill sergeants with its precision and efficiency. Reveille comes before dawn, marked by trumpet calls that can be heard throughout the camp and probably in the next province. Soldiers immediately begin the morning duties that turn a collection of sleeping men into a functioning military unit, cleaning weapons and armor, preparing breakfast, and receiving the day's orders from their centurions. Roman military discipline is legendary for good reason. A soldier who falls asleep on guard duty faces execution by his own comrades, who stone him to death because his negligence endangers everyone. A unit that breaks and runs in battle faces decimation, literally the execution of every 10th man chosen by lot, because collective cowardice demands collective punishment. These harsh penalties exist not because Roman officers are sadists, but because Roman military doctrine depends on absolute reliability and mutual trust among soldiers who must function as a single organism in battle. The Roman soldier's equipment represents a careful balance between protection, offensive capability, and the practical requirements of men who must march 20 miles a day while carrying everything they need to survive. The larica hamata, or chainmail shirt, provides excellent protection against cuts while remaining flexible enough to allow full range of motion. The scutum, the large rectangular shield, can protect a soldier from head to knee while also serving as an offensive weapon for shield punches and coordinated pushing movements. The gladius, the short sword, is designed for close quarters combat, where thrusting attacks are more effective than slashing, reflecting Roman tactical preferences for tight formations and disciplined fighting. But here's what makes Roman soldiers different from other ancient warriors. They're not just fighters, they're engineers, road builders, siege specialists, and administrators who can conquer a city and then govern it efficiently. Roman legions carry not only weapons, but surveying equipment, construction tools, and the bureaucratic apparatus needed to transform conquered territories into functioning Roman provinces. A typical day for a Roman soldier on campaign might begin with breaking camp, a process that involves not only packing personal equipment but dismantling the fortifications and loading the heavy equipment and supplies that keep the legion functioning. The march itself is a complex logistical operation that moves thousands of men, animals, and wagons across terrain that might include anything from excellent Roman roads to trackless wilderness where engineers must build bridges and clear paths for the column. Roman military engineers are perhaps the most underappreciated dedicated heroes of ancient warfare. They can throw a bridge across a river in a matter of hours, construct siege engines that can breach walls thought to be impregnable, and build roads that will still be in use 2,000 years later. The Roman military doesn't just defeat enemies, it remakes the landscape to serve Roman purposes, carving roads through mountains, draining swamps, and building aqueducts that bring fresh water to cities hundreds of miles away. Evening in a Roman military camp brings its own routines and challenges. Sentries are posted according to a rotation system that ensures every man serves his share of guard duty, while also providing adequate rest for the majority of the force. Soldiers maintain their equipment, write letters home, and engage in the kinds of gambling, storytelling, and minor mischief that have characterized military life in every era. Roman soldiers developed their own culture within the larger framework of Roman civilization, with traditions, superstitions, and slang that distinguish them from civilian society. They worship military versions of Roman gods, particularly Mars and Jupiter, but also adopt local deities from the territories where they serve, creating a syncretic religious tradition that reflects their cosmopolitan experience. Veterans carry these traditions back to their home communities when their service ends, spreading Roman culture throughout the territories, while also bringing foreign influences into the heart of Roman society. The relationship between Roman soldiers and the civilian populations they encounter varies dramatically depending on circumstances. In conquered territories, soldiers might be seen as occupiers whose presence must be endured, while in established provinces, they're often welcome customers whose pay supports local businesses and whose engineering projects benefit everyone. Roman soldiers generally treat civilians reasonably well, not out of pure benevolence, but because harsh treatment creates resistance that makes military operations more difficult and dangerous. Roman military medicine represents a significant advance over civilian medical practice, partly because military commanders have practical incentives to keep their soldiers healthy, and partly because military physicians gain experience treating trauma that civilian doctors rarely encounter. Roman military hospitals are marvels of organization and efficiency, with specialized wards, surgical instruments that wouldn't look out of place in a modern emergency room, and medical records that track treatment outcomes with scientific precision. The Roman military also serves as an educational institution that teaches practical skills to men who might otherwise spend their entire lives as subsistence farmers. Soldiers learn to read and write, if they didn't already know how, because military administration requires extensive record-keeping and communication. They learn basic engineering, mathematics, and construction techniques. They're exposed to different languages, customs, and technologies from across the Roman world. For many plebeians, military service provides the only opportunity for social and economic advancement available in Roman society. Retirement from Roman military service, assuming a soldier survives his term of duty, brings both rewards and challenges. Veterans receive land grants in Roman colonies, often in conquered territories where their presence serves the dual purpose of rewarding loyal service and providing military settlers who can help defend Roman interests. These veteran colonies become centers of Roman culture and administration, spreading Roman law, language, and customs throughout the empire, while also providing markets for Roman goods and sources of tax revenue. The Roman household, whether wealthy or poor, urban or rural, operates according to principles that would mystify modern family therapists, but make perfect sense within the context of Roman society. The familia includes not only blood relatives, but slaves, freedmen, clients, and anyone else under the protection and authority of the paterfamilias, creating extended household units that might number in the dozens for wealthy families, or just a handful for poor ones. Roman domestic architecture reflects these social relationships through spatial arrangements that seem both familiar and alien to modern sensibilities. The wealthy Roman domus, built around a central atrium open to the sky, creates a series of public and private spaces that accommodate both family life and the constant stream of visitors, clients, and business associates that Roman social life requires. The atrium serves as a reception hall where the paterfamilias meets with clients each morning, a display space for family honors and ancestral masks, and a practical area where rainwater is collected in a central basin for household use. But most Romans don't live in elegant domus with frescoed walls and marble floors. The urban plebeian family occupies 1 or 2 rooms in an insulae, a multi-story apartment building that houses dozens of families in conditions that modern fire marshals would condemn without hesitation. These buildings rise 5 or 6 stories above street level, with the ground floor reserved for shops and the upper floors divided into progressively smaller and cheaper apartments as you climb higher. Living in a Roman insulae requires adaptability and a high tolerance for noise, smells, and invasion of privacy. Walls are thin, often consisting of wooden partitions that provide visual separation but no sound insulation. Cooking fires, oil lamps, and human bodies packed into small spaces create air quality issues that Romans address primarily by spending as much time as possible outdoors. Waste disposal involves carrying chamber pots down multiple flights of stairs to communal latrines, a chore that nobody enjoys but everyone must perform unless they're wealthy enough to own slaves. The Roman family's daily routine begins before dawn, not because Romans are naturally early risers, but because artificial lighting is expensive and Roman social life operates according to natural light cycles. The paterfamilias receives his clients in the early morning hours, a ritual called the salutatio that reinforces social hierarchies and provides opportunities for political and business networking. Clients present themselves at their patron's door, offer respectful greetings, and receive small gifts of food or money in return for their political support and social deference. Roman breakfast, the first meal of the day, would disappoint modern nutritionists, but reflects the practical realities of Roman food production and preservation. Bread forms the foundation of most meals, supplemented by olives, cheese, eggs, and whatever fruits or vegetables are in season. Wine mixed with water provides both hydration and mild antiseptic properties, while pure water remains suspect in urban areas where contamination is a constant concern. The Roman housewife, the matrona, manages domestic operations with the same organizational skills that Roman men apply to military campaigns and political careers. She supervises food preparation, textile production, childcare, and slave management, while also maintaining the social relationships that support her family's position in Roman society. Roman women of all social classes work, whether managing households, operating businesses, or laboring in workshops and fields, but their contributions often go unrecognized in historical records that focus primarily on male activities. Roman textile production, largely the domain of women, represents one of the most important and least appreciated aspects of Roman economic life. Every household with pretensions to respectability maintains spinning and weaving operations that produce the clothing, bedding, and household textiles that Roman families need. Wool processing begins with sheep shearing, continues through cleaning, combing, and spinning the wool into thread, and culminates in weaving cloth on looms that require considerable skill to operate effectively. The social aspects of Roman textile work create opportunities for women to gather, share news, and maintain the informal networks that parallel male political and business relationships. Spinning and weaving work allows for conversation and socialization while producing economically valuable goods, making these activities central to both household economy and female social life. Roman child-rearing practices reflect the practical realities of high infant mortality and the need for children to contribute to household economy as soon as possible. Roman children are not the protected, educated beings that modern parents try to create. They're apprentice adults who must learn practical skills and social relationships that will allow them to survive and prosper in Roman society. Roman boys from wealthy families receive formal education that includes reading, writing, mathematics, and rhetoric, skills needed for political and business careers. Boys from poorer families learn trades through apprenticeship systems that combine practical training with room and board. Roman girls, regardless of social class, are expected to master domestic skills, including textile production, food preparation, and household management, though upper-class girls might also receive some formal education in reading and writing. The Roman coming-of-age ceremony, where boys exchange the purple-striped toga praetexta of childhood for the plain white toga virilis of adult citizenship, marks the transition from family dependence to civic responsibility. This ceremony, typically occurring around age 14 to 16, transforms a boy into a legal person capable of making contracts, owning property, and eventually participating in military service and political life. Roman family relationships are governed by legal principles that grant enormous authority to the paterfamilias, while also creating obligations and expectations that shape behavior throughout the extended household. The paterfamilias has legal power over his children throughout his lifetime, including the right to arrange marriages, approve or forbid business ventures, and even order executions, though these extreme powers are rarely exercised in practice. Marriage among Romans serves primarily economic and political functions rather than romantic ones, though affection between spouses certainly develops and is celebrated when it occurs. Roman marriages are business arrangements that unite families, consolidate property, and create political alliances, with the emotional satisfaction of the parties involved being a pleasant bonus rather than the primary objective. Roman divorce is remarkably simple and egalitarian by ancient standards, requiring only the expressed intention of one spouse to end the marriage. Property arrangements are governed by marriage contracts that specify what each party brings to the union and what they take away if it ends. Children remain under the legal authority of their father, regardless of which parent they live with after divorce, though practical arrangements often differ from legal technicalities. Roman entertainment within the household includes music, storytelling, and games that serve both recreational and educational purposes. Roman children play with toys and games that teach adult skills, miniature weapons for boys, dolls and kitchen equipment for girls, and board games that develop strategic thinking and mathematical abilities. Roman adults enjoy gambling, music, and literary recitations that provide intellectual stimulation and social interaction within the domestic sphere. Roman religious observances within the household center around the worship of the Lares and Penates, household gods who protect the family and ensure its prosperity. Daily offerings of food, wine, and incense at the household shrine maintain good relationships with these deities, while also reinforcing family unity and traditional values. Religious festivals throughout the Roman calendar provide opportunities for household celebrations that combine spiritual observance with social entertainment. Roman food culture reflects the practical challenges of feeding a large urban population in an age before refrigeration, canned goods, or global supply chains. The Roman diet varies dramatically by social class, season, and geographic location, but certain patterns emerge that characterize eating habits across Roman society. Grain forms the foundation of the Roman diet, primarily wheat for those who can afford it, and barley, millet, or other cheaper grains for those who cannot. Roman bread comes in numerous varieties, from the finest white loaves made from sifted wheat flour and enjoyed by the wealthy, to coarse, dark breads that include whatever grains, legumes, and fillers are available to stretch expensive wheat flour. Roman bakers developed specialized skills in creating breads for different occasions and social classes, with some bakeries serving exclusively wealthy customers, while others focus on providing basic nutrition for the urban poor. The Roman government recognizes that feeding the urban population is a political necessity that transcends market economics. The grain dole, initially limited to citizens who meet specific criteria, eventually expands to provide free bread to hundreds of thousands of Romans. This system requires massive logistical operations that import wheat from Egypt, Africa, and other surplus-producing regions, store it in enormous warehouses, and distribute it through a bureaucratic apparatus that would impress modern welfare administrators. Roman meals follow patterns that seem both familiar and strange to modern sensibilities. The traditional Roman breakfast, ientaculum, consists of bread, cheese, olives, and watered wine, eaten quickly before beginning the day's work. The midday meal, prandium, is typically light and portable, often consisting of bread, cold meat, and fruit that can be eaten without stopping work. The main meal, cena, takes place in the late afternoon or early evening and represents the primary opportunity for both nutrition and social interaction. Roman cooking techniques are limited by available technology, but demonstrate considerable ingenuity within those constraints. Roman kitchens use wood or charcoal fires for cooking, creating challenges in controlling temperature and managing smoke that Roman cooks address through experience and specialized equipment. Roman ovens, constructed of stone or brick, can bake bread, roast meat, and prepare the complex stews and sauces that characterize Roman cuisine. Roman food preservation techniques reflect the need to store food safely without refrigeration, while also creating the complex flavors that Romans prefer. Garum, the fermented fish sauce that appears in countless Roman recipes, provides both preservation and flavoring, while also supplying protein and minerals that might otherwise be lacking in Roman diets. Roman techniques for preserving meat, vegetables, and fruits through salting, smoking, drying, and fermentation create a pantry of ingredients that can be combined in countless ways throughout the year. The Roman approach to seasoning and flavoring food emphasizes strong, complex tastes that mask any off flavors that might develop in foods that lack modern preservation techniques. Roman cooks use garum, wine, honey, and imported spices to create flavor profiles that would challenge modern palates but provide both gustatory pleasure and practical benefits for food safety. Roman dining customs vary significantly between social classes and occasions, but certain patterns characterize Roman meal culture across society. Romans generally eat with their fingers, using knives for cutting and spoons for liquids, but developing considerable dexterity in manipulating food without modern utensils. Roman table manners emphasize moderation, conversation, and respect for social hierarchies that are reflected in seating arrangements and service protocols. The Roman banquet, or convivium, represents Roman dining culture at its most elaborate and socially significant. These events serve multiple functions. They provide opportunities for political networking, demonstrate the host's wealth and taste, reinforce social relationships, and offer entertainment that might include music, poetry recitations, and philosophical discussions. Roman banquets follow elaborate protocols that govern everything from guest invitations to menu selection to entertainment programming. Roman drinking customs center around wine, which Romans rarely consume undiluted but mix with water in proportions that vary according to the occasion and the quality of the wine. Roman wine production involves techniques that create beverages ranging from light, barely alcoholic drinks suitable for daily consumption to heavy, sweet wines reserved for special occasions. Romans also produce and consume various fermented beverages made from fruits other than grapes, though grape wine remains the prestige drink that defines Roman drinking culture. Roman attitudes toward food reflect broader cultural values that emphasize moderation, social harmony, and respect for tradition. Gluttony and excessive drinking are condemned not primarily for health reasons, but because they represent failures of self-control that threaten social order. Roman moralists regularly criticize elaborate banquets and exotic foods as symptoms of moral decay, though these criticisms seem to have little effect on Roman dining practices. Roman cooking as a domestic art form develops along different lines for different social classes. Wealthy Romans employ specialized cooks who create elaborate dishes using expensive ingredients and complex techniques, while poorer Romans develop skills in stretching cheap ingredients into nutritious meals that provide adequate nutrition within tight budget constraints. Roman cookbook recipes, preserved in works like Apicius's De Re Coquinaria, reveal sophisticated understanding of flavor combinations and cooking techniques that require considerable skill to execute properly. The Roman food supply chain represents one of the most complex logistical operations in the ancient world, involving farmers, merchants, shippers, processors, and retailers who move food from production areas to urban markets through transportation networks that span the Mediterranean world. Roman merchants specialize in particular foods or regions, developing expertise in quality assessment, preservation techniques, and market timing that allows them to profit from the constant demand for food in Roman cities. Roman food safety, such as it is, depends primarily on traditional techniques and practical experience, rather than scientific understanding of contamination and disease transmission. Romans learned to recognize spoiled food through appearance, smell, and taste, and develop preservation and cooking techniques that reduce health risks without understanding the underlying biological processes involved. Roman seasonal eating patterns reflect both agricultural cycles and cultural traditions that celebrate the arrival of particular foods throughout the year. Spring brings fresh vegetables and young animals, summer produces fruits and grains, autumn offers nuts and preservation opportunities, and winter requires reliance on stored foods and preservation techniques that maintain nutrition through the months when fresh food is unavailable. Roman regional food differences develop as Roman territories expand to include areas with different climates, crops, and culinary traditions. Roman cuisine absorbs influences from Greek, Celtic, Germanic, and African food cultures, creating regional variations that reflect local ingredients and cultural preferences while maintaining recognizably Roman characteristics. Roman entertainment ranges from intimate household diversions to massive public spectacles that define Roman cultural identity for centuries to come. The Romans approach entertainment with the same organizational intensity they apply to warfare and politics, creating systems of public amusement that serve multiple social and political functions while also providing genuine enjoyment for participants and spectators. Roman theatrical traditions, borrowed and adapted from Greek models, produce both high-quality literary works and popular entertainments that appeal to different segments of Roman society. Roman theatres, built of stone and designed with sophisticated acoustic properties, can accommodate thousands of spectators who come to see comedies, tragedies, and the uniquely Roman theatrical form known as mime, which combines elements of comedy, music, and often risque physical performance. Roman playwrights like Plautus and Terence create works that blend Greek dramatic structures with Roman sensibilities, producing comedies that satirize Roman social types while also celebrating Roman values. These plays feature characters and situations that Roman audiences recognize immediately: the clever slave who outsmarts his master, the young lover who must overcome parental opposition, the braggart soldier whose courage exists primarily in his imagination, and the shrewd wife who manages her household and her husband with equal skill. Roman mime performances, quite different from the silent entertainment that modern audiences associate with the term, involve speaking actors who perform improvisational comedy based on stock characters and situations. Roman mime often includes political satire, sexual humor, and social commentary that provides both entertainment and a relatively safe outlet for criticizing public figures and social conditions. Roman religious festivals provide regular opportunities for public entertainment that combine spiritual observance with social celebration. These festivals, scattered throughout the Roman calendar, feature processions, sacrifices, theatrical performances, and games that transform Rome into a citywide party where normal social restrictions are temporarily relaxed and citizens can enjoy pleasures that daily life rarely provides. Roman public baths, the thermae, serve as social centres where Romans of all classes gather for bathing, exercise, business discussions, and social interaction. Roman bathing culture involves elaborate rituals of cleansing, relaxation, and socialization that can occupy several hours and serve multiple functions beyond simple hygiene. Roman baths include hot rooms, cold rooms, exercise areas, libraries, and gardens that create comprehensive leisure environments. The Roman bathing process begins in the apoditerium, or changing room, where bathers remove their clothes and store them in niches or entrust them to slave attendants. The caldarium, or hot room, provides intense heat and steam that opens pores and promotes sweating, while the tepidarium offers moderate temperatures for gradual adjustment. The frigidarium, or cold room, completes the cycle with refreshing cool water that closes pores and invigorates the body. Roman bath attendants provide services that range from simple assistance with clothing and equipment to elaborate treatments including massage, hair removal, and cosmetic applications. Roman baths also feature vendors selling food, drinks, and various goods, creating marketplace atmospheres where business and pleasure intersect in uniquely Roman ways. Roman gambling represents a popular pastime that crosses all social boundaries, from dice games played by soldiers around campfires to elaborate betting schemes that involve chariot races and gladiatorial contests. Romans gamble on everything: the outcome of political elections, the weather, the results of military campaigns, and the performance of their favorite entertainers. Roman dice, made from bone or ivory, are found in archaeological sites throughout the Roman world, often accompanied by gaming boards and the small counters used in various games of chance and strategy. Roman board games, including La Truncoli, a strategic game similar to chess, and Duodecim Scripta, which resembles backgammon, provide intellectual entertainment that appeals to Romans who enjoy mental challenges. These games often involve gambling, but they also serve educational functions by developing strategic thinking and mathematical skills that transfer to military and business applications. Roman music and dance, less well documented than other forms of entertainment, play important roles in both religious and secular contexts. Roman musicians use instruments including the tibia, a type of flute, the cithara, a stringed instrument similar to a lyre, and various percussion instruments that provide rhythm for dancing and religious ceremonies. Roman music serves practical functions in military contexts, where trumpet calls coordinate troop movements, and in religious contexts, where musical accompaniment enhances ritual effectiveness. Roman storytelling traditions, both oral and written, preserve historical memories, moral lessons, and entertainment that shapes Roman cultural identity. Roman audiences enjoy epic poetry, historical narratives, and fictional stories that celebrate Roman values, while also providing escape from daily concerns. Roman storytellers, both professional entertainers and ordinary citizens, develop repertoires of tales that can be adapted to different audiences and occasions. Roman children's entertainment includes games, toys, and activities that prepare them for adult roles while also providing immediate enjoyment. Roman children play with dolls, miniature soldiers, hoops, balls, and various games that develop physical coordination and social skills. Roman education includes recreational activities that make learning more enjoyable, including recitation competitions, mathematical games, and physical exercises that combine education with entertainment. Roman seasonal festivals create regular cycles of celebration that punctuate the Roman year, with opportunities for community gathering and shared enjoyment. Saturnalia, the December festival that temporarily reverses social hierarchies, allows slaves to give orders to masters and creates atmosphere of licensed revelry that provides psychological relief from normal social tensions. Lupercalia, the February fertility festival, involves ritualized nudity and symbolic violence that celebrates renewal and community bonds. Roman private entertainment within wealthy households includes elaborate dinner parties featuring multiple courses, imported delicacies, and entertainment by professional performers, including musicians, dancers, and poets. These events serve social and political functions while also providing genuine pleasure for participants who enjoy good food, stimulating conversation, and high-quality artistic performances. Roman public entertainment reaches its most spectacular expression in the gladiatorial games and chariot races that will define Roman popular culture for centuries. These events, initially associated with funeral rites, evolve into massive public spectacles that serve political functions while also providing excitement and drama that appeals to Roman audiences across social classes. The development of Roman amphitheatres, culminating in the Colosseum, creates architectural spaces specifically designed for mass entertainment that can accommodate tens of thousands of spectators, while also providing complex staging areas for elaborate performances. Roman engineering applied to entertainment creates structures that manage crowd control, provide good sight lines from every seat, and enable quick scene changes that maintain audience interest through long programs. Roman gladiatorial training, conducted in specialized schools called ludi, creates professional entertainers whose skills in combat and showmanship provide Roman audiences with athletic spectacle and dramatic narrative. Roman gladiators, recruited from slaves, prisoners of war, and voluntary participants, undergo rigorous training that develops both fighting ability and theatrical skills needed to create entertaining performances. Roman chariot racing, conducted in massive circus structures, creates sporting events that combine athletic competition with gambling opportunities and partisan enthusiasm that divides Roman society into competing factions. Roman chariot teams, identified by colours including red, white, blue, and green, develop fan bases that transcend normal social boundaries and create shared identities that unite Romans across class lines. Roman work life encompasses every conceivable form of human labour, from the most prestigious professions that lead to political power and social recognition to the most humble occupations that barely provide subsistence but remain essential to Roman civilization. The Roman attitude toward work reflects complex social hierarchies that value different types of labour according to criteria that often seem contradictory to modern sensibilities. Roman agriculture, the foundation of Roman wealth and the occupation of the majority of Roman citizens, involves techniques and social relationships that evolve significantly during the Republican period. Early Roman farms are small family operations where the paterfamilias works alongside his sons and slaves to produce grain, olives, grapes, and livestock that provide both family sustenance and surplus for market sale. The Roman agricultural calendar follows seasonal patterns that dictate farming activities throughout the year. Spring brings ploughing, sowing, and the birthing of young animals that require constant attention and care. Summer involves cultivating crops, shearing sheep, and maintaining irrigation systems that keep plants alive during hot, dry months. Autumn brings harvest activities that determine family survival through the coming winter, including grain threshing, olive pressing, and grape harvesting for wine production. Winter provides time for equipment maintenance, building repairs, and planning for the next agricultural cycle. Roman farming tools, while simple by modern standards, represent sophisticated adaptations to Mediterranean climate and soil conditions. The Roman plough, pulled by oxen and guided by human operators, can break ground efficiently while conserving human energy for other tasks. Roman harvesting tools, including sickles and scythes, allow efficient grain cutting while minimizing waste. Roman processing equipment, including olive presses and wine vats, transforms raw agricultural products into storable forms that can be consumed throughout the year or sold for cash income. Roman agricultural labour involves entire families in activities that require different skills and physical capabilities. Men typically handle heavy work, including ploughing, construction, and large animal management, while women manage poultry, gardens, food processing, and textile production. Children contribute labour appropriate to their size and abilities, beginning with simple tasks like bird scaring and progressing to more complex work as they mature. Roman agricultural slavery creates labor systems that allow large estates, called latifundia, to produce crops for urban markets using workers who have no choice but to perform whatever labor their owners demand. Roman agricultural slaves work under conditions that range from relatively benign, when owners recognize that healthy, motivated slaves are more productive, to brutally harsh, when owners prioritize immediate profits over long-term sustainability. Roman urban crafts and trades create opportunities for skilled workers to earn respectable livings while also serving essential functions in Roman economic life. Roman craftsmen organize themselves into collegia that regulate trade practices, maintain quality standards, and provide social support for members and their families. Roman metalworking, including blacksmithing, bronze working, and precious metal crafts, supplies tools, weapons, jewelry, and household items that Roman civilization requires. Roman metalworkers developed specialized skills in different materials and techniques, with some focusing on mass production of common items, while others create luxury goods for wealthy customers. Roman textile production, dominated by women but including male workers in specialized roles, creates the clothing, household linens, and military equipment that clothe Roman society. Roman textile workers process raw materials, including wool, linen, and imported silk, through complex procedures that transform animal fleeces and plant fibers into finished fabrics. Roman construction work, essential to Roman urban development and infrastructure projects, employs thousands of workers in jobs that range from skilled stone carving to basic manual labor. Roman construction sites are dangerous workplaces where accidents are common and safety precautions minimal, but they also provide steady employment for workers who develop valuable skills. Roman food production and distribution, beyond basic agriculture, includes baking, brewing, meat processing, and the various trades that transform raw ingredients into prepared foods. Roman bakers operate complex businesses that require significant capital investment in ovens and equipment, while also managing supply chains that bring grain from rural areas to urban consumers. Roman transportation and logistics, essential to Roman economic integration, create employment for thousands of workers who move goods and people throughout the Roman world. Roman teamsters drive ox carts over Roman roads, ship captains navigate Mediterranean sea routes, and dock workers load and unload cargo in busy ports. Roman retail trade, conducted in shops, markets, and traveling merchant operations, provides goods and services that Roman consumers need, while also creating opportunities for social interaction and information exchange. Roman shopkeepers develop detailed knowledge of their customers' preferences and financial situations, extending credit and maintaining relationships that often span generations. Roman service occupations, including barbers, bath attendants, entertainers, and domestic servants, provide personal services that make Roman life more comfortable, while also creating employment for workers who might otherwise lack economic opportunities. Roman professional occupations, including law, medicine, engineering, and education, require extensive training and provide high social status along with substantial incomes. Roman lawyers develop expertise in the complex legal system that governs Roman society, while Roman physicians combine traditional remedies with practical experience gained from treating various ailments and injuries. Roman administrative work, both public and private, creates employment for clerks, accountants, and bureaucrats who manage the record-keeping and communication that Roman civilization requires. Roman scribes develop specialized skills in writing and document preparation that make them valuable employees for wealthy individuals and government agencies. Roman slave labor pervades every aspect of Roman economic life, from agricultural work to skilled crafts to domestic service, creating a labor system that provides enormous economic benefits to slave owners while condemning millions of people to lives of enforced servitude. Roman slavery includes individuals with various backgrounds and capabilities, from educated Greeks who serve as teachers and administrators to prisoners of war who perform manual labor under harsh conditions. Roman freed slaves, or litanies, occupy a unique position in Roman society as former slaves who have gained legal freedom but retain social obligations to their former masters. Roman freedmen often continue working in the same occupations they practiced as slaves, but they can now earn wages, own property, and make independent decisions about their lives and families. Roman work relationships often involve complex mixtures of free and slave labor, with free workers and slaves working side by side in shops, construction sites, and agricultural operations. Roman attitudes toward work reflect social prejudices that value some types of labor while denigrating others, often according to criteria that prioritize social status over economic contribution or practical utility. Roman social relationships operate according to complex hierarchies and obligations that create networks of mutual dependence spanning all levels of society. These relationships, formalized through legal and customary arrangements, provide both social stability and opportunities for advancement, while also creating tensions and conflicts that shape Roman political and cultural development. The Roman patron-client relationship forms the basic building block of Roman social organization, creating vertical bonds between individuals of different social classes that provide benefits to both parties, while also reinforcing existing hierarchies. Roman patrons provide protection, legal assistance, and economic opportunities to their clients, while clients offer political support, personal service, and social deference that enhances their patrons' status and influence. Roman citizenship, the fundamental legal status that distinguishes Romans from foreigners and free persons from slaves, carries both privileges and obligations that define individual identity within Roman society. Roman citizens enjoy legal protections, including the right to trial, the right to vote, and the right to make contracts and own property, while also bearing responsibilities including military service and tax obligations. Roman family relationships extend far beyond the nuclear family to include complex networks of blood relatives, in-laws, adopted children, and household dependents who share economic resources and social obligations. Roman families function as economic units that pool labor and capital to achieve objectives that individual members could not accomplish alone, while also serving as social safety nets that provide support during times of crisis. Roman marriage practices reflect both romantic preferences and practical considerations, including property arrangements, political alliances, and family strategies for social advancement. Roman marriages are typically arranged by families rather than chosen by the individuals involved, though personal compatibility and affection are considered desirable when they can be achieved alongside practical objectives. Roman divorce, legally simple but socially complex, allows couples to end marriages that have become incompatible or economically disadvantageous, while also creating new opportunities for political and economic alliances through remarriage. Roman divorce settlements, governed by marriage contracts and legal precedents, determine property division and child custody according to established procedures that protect the interests of both parties and their families. Roman child-rearing practices emphasize practical education and character development that prepare children for adult roles in Roman society. Roman parents, particularly fathers, have enormous legal authority over their children, including decisions about education, marriage, and career choices that shape children's entire lives. Roman education systems, available primarily to wealthy families, provide training in reading, writing, rhetoric, and philosophy that prepares students for careers in law, politics, and business. Roman schools, typically operated by private teachers rather than government institutions, offer instruction that combines practical skills with cultural knowledge that defines educated Romans. Roman religious practices, both public and private, create shared experiences and common obligations that unite Roman communities while also providing spiritual comfort and practical guidance for daily life. Roman religion emphasizes correct ritual performance and community participation rather than personal belief or emotional experience, creating religious systems that support social stability and political authority. Roman legal institutions, including courts, judges, and legal procedures, provide mechanisms for resolving disputes and enforcing social norms that maintain order within Roman society. Roman law develops through precedent and legislation into comprehensive legal codes that address everything from property rights to criminal behavior, creating systematic approaches to justice that influence legal systems for centuries. Roman political participation, limited to male citizens and structured according to complex constitutional arrangements, provides opportunities for public service and social advancement, while also creating arenas for competition and conflict among ambitious individuals and families. Roman political careers follow established pathways that require military service, financial resources, and social connections that not all citizens can provide. Roman economic relationships, including business partnerships, employment arrangements, and trade agreements, create networks of mutual obligation and shared interest that extend throughout the Roman world. Roman commerce operates according to customs and legal frameworks that facilitate long-distance trade and complex financial transactions involving multiple parties and currencies. Roman neighborhood and community relationships, particularly important for urban residents who live in close proximity to numerous neighbors, create informal networks of mutual assistance and social interaction that supplement formal legal and political institutions. Roman communities develop their own customs and leadership structures that address local needs and concerns, while also connecting to larger Roman social and political systems. Roman gender relationships, governed by legal frameworks and social customs that clearly distinguish male and female roles and responsibilities, create separate spheres of activity for men and women, while also recognizing the practical necessity of cooperation and mutual dependence between the sexes. Roman age relationships, structured according to customs that respect elderly wisdom while also recognizing youthful energy and ambition, create intergenerational bonds that transfer knowledge and resources from older to younger community members while also providing care and support for aging individuals. Roman ethnic and cultural relationships, complicated by Roman expansion into territories inhabited by diverse populations, create challenges and opportunities for cultural integration and social mobility that shape Roman identity and imperial policy. Romans develop attitudes toward foreign peoples that combine cultural chauvinism with practical recognition of the benefits that can be gained through cooperation and assimilation. Roman social mobility, while limited by legal restrictions and cultural prejudices, provides some opportunities for individuals to improve their social and economic status through military service, business success, or political achievement. Roman society includes numerous examples of individuals who rise from humble origins to positions of wealth and influence, creating aspirational models that motivate ambitious Romans, while also demonstrating that social advancement is possible within Roman institutional frameworks. Roman social control mechanisms, including legal penalties, social ostracism, and economic sanctions, maintain behavioral norms and social hierarchies, while also providing means for addressing deviance and conflict that threaten community stability. Roman approaches to social control emphasize restoration of social harmony rather than purely punitive measures, though Roman punishments can be severe when crimes threaten fundamental social institutions. Roman leisure and social interaction, conducted in public spaces including forums, baths, theatres, and religious venues, provide opportunities for relationship building and community participation that strengthen social bonds while also creating arenas for competition and display of social status. As the Roman Republic matures and expands beyond the Italian peninsula, the daily experiences of ordinary Romans undergo transformations that reflect both the opportunities and challenges created by imperial success. The influx of wealth, slaves, and foreign influences that accompany Roman conquests creates new possibilities for Roman citizens, while also generating social tensions and cultural conflicts that will eventually contribute to the Republic's transformation into an empire. Roman urban life during the later Republic becomes increasingly cosmopolitan as Rome grows into a megalopolis that attracts migrants, traders, and political refugees from throughout the Mediterranean world. The streets of Republican Rome echo with languages from dozens of different cultures, while markets offer goods that previous generations of Romans could never have imagined: Chinese silk, Indian spices, British tin, and African ivory that demonstrate Rome's expanding reach and growing appetite for luxury. The typical Roman citizen of the late Republic lives in a world that would be both familiar and alien to his ancestors from the early Republic. The basic rhythms of daily life remain largely unchanged. Work begins at dawn, the midday meal provides brief respite from labor, and evening brings opportunities for socializing and rest. But the context within which these activities occur has been transformed by the wealth and cultural diversity that Roman conquests have brought to the Eternal City. Roman housing in the late Republic reflects the growing wealth disparity that characterizes this period of Roman history. Wealthy Romans build increasingly elaborate private homes featuring multiple courtyards, extensive slave quarters, private baths, and decorative programs that showcase both artistic sophistication and conspicuous consumption. Meanwhile, the urban poor crowd into apartment buildings that grow ever taller and more precarious as landlords seek to maximize rental income from limited urban land. Roman diet during the late Republic includes exotic foods and elaborate preparation techniques that demonstrate both Roman prosperity and Roman willingness to adopt foreign customs when they serve Roman purposes. Wealthy Romans employ specialized cooks who create dishes featuring dormice, peacock, and other delicacies that would have scandalized earlier generations of Romans who prided themselves on simple, traditional foods. Roman entertainment in the late Republic becomes increasingly elaborate and expensive as political competitors use public spectacles to win popular support and demonstrate their wealth and generosity. Gladiatorial games grow from simple funeral rites into massive productions featuring hundreds of participants and exotic animals imported from Africa and Asia. Chariot racing develops into a major industry that employs thousands of workers, while also creating partisan enthusiasm that sometimes erupts into violent conflicts between competing factions. Roman military service during the late Republic undergoes reforms that transform citizen soldiers into professional warriors whose primary loyalty belongs to successful commanders rather than to the Roman state itself. The military reforms of Marius create armies of landless citizens who depend on their generals for both immediate survival and future prosperity, setting the stage for the civil wars that will eventually destroy the republican system. Roman politics during the late Republic becomes increasingly violent and unstable as traditional institutions prove inadequate to govern an empire that spans 3 continents and includes dozens of different peoples with varying degrees of loyalty to Rome. Political competition that once involved debates over policy and personality develops into armed conflict between ambitious commanders who use military force to settle political disputes. Roman social relationships during the late Republic face unprecedented challenges as traditional Roman values encounter foreign influences that offer alternative approaches to family life, religious practice, and social organization. Roman conservatives react to these changes with alarm, proposing legislation designed to preserve traditional Roman customs while also attempting to limit the political influence of foreign residents and recently freed slaves. Roman economic life during the late Republic benefits enormously from imperial expansion that provides new markets for Roman goods, while also creating opportunities for investment and speculation that generate unprecedented wealth for successful entrepreneurs. Roman businessmen develop commercial networks that span the known world, while Roman bankers create financial instruments that facilitate international trade and long-distance investment. Roman religious life during the late Republic incorporates influences from conquered territories, including mystery religions from the East that offer personal salvation and emotional satisfaction that traditional Roman religion lacks. These foreign religions attract Roman followers who seek spiritual experiences that complement rather than replace traditional civic religious observances. Roman intellectual life during the late Republic flourishes as contact with Greek culture provides Roman writers, philosophers, and artists with sophisticated models and techniques that they adapt to Roman purposes and sensibilities. Roman authors create literary works that rival Greek classics while also celebrating distinctively Roman values and achievements. Roman women during the late Republic enjoy greater freedom and influence than their ancestors, partly because of wealth that provides alternatives to traditional domestic roles, and partly because of Greek and Eastern influences that offer different models of female behavior. Some Roman women become influential political figures who use their wealth and connections to support political causes and candidates. Roman slaves during the late Republic include highly educated Greeks and other foreigners who serve as teachers, physicians, and administrators, creating complex social situations where slaves may be more cultured and skilled than their masters. The large-scale importation of slaves also creates security concerns, as demonstrated by slave rebellions, including the revolt led by Spartacus. Roman leisure activities during the late Republic reflect both increased wealth and exposure to foreign cultures that offer new forms of entertainment and relaxation. Roman elites develop interests in Greek philosophy, art collection, and literary patronage that distinguish them from earlier generations of Romans who focused primarily on military and political achievement. Roman technological innovation during the late Republic benefits from contact with other cultures, while also developing distinctively Roman approaches to engineering and construction that will characterize Roman civilization for centuries. Roman engineers perfect techniques for road construction, aqueduct design, and architectural planning that allow Roman cities to function effectively despite enormous populations and complex logistical challenges. Roman legal development during the late Republic creates systematic approaches to jurisprudence that will influence legal systems throughout the Western world. Roman lawyers develop principles of legal reasoning and procedural fairness that protect individual rights while also maintaining social order and political stability. The daily life of a Roman citizen during the late Republic thus represents a unique historical moment when traditional Italian customs encounter and assimilate influences from throughout the known world, creating a cosmopolitan civilization that maintains its distinctively Roman character while also incorporating the best elements of other cultures. This synthesis of tradition and innovation, of Roman values and foreign influences, creates the cultural foundation that will support the Roman Empire for centuries to come. As we conclude this journey through the daily life of Republican Rome, from its humble beginnings on the 7 hills beside the Tiber to its transformation into the master of the Mediterranean world, we can see how the experiences of ordinary Romans, the farmers and soldiers, the craftsmen and merchants, the parents and children who lived, worked, and died in the shadow of Roman greatness, created the foundation for one of history's most remarkable civilizations. Their daily struggles with the practical challenges of survival and prosperity, their adaptations to changing circumstances and opportunities, and their gradual development of institutions and customs that could govern an increasingly complex society, provide the human foundation that supported Roman achievements in law, engineering, military organization, and political administration. The Roman Republic's daily life reminds us that great civilizations are built not by heroic individuals alone, but by ordinary people who create, maintain, and adapt the social, economic, and cultural systems that allow human societies to flourish across centuries and continents. In the quiet moments between dawn and dusk, in the routine activities of work and rest, in the simple human connections of family and friendship, we find the true foundation of Roman greatness. The accumulated wisdom and effort of countless individuals who chose to build rather than destroy, to cooperate rather than conflict, and to preserve rather than abandon the institutions and values that made Roman civilization possible. This isn't about making ancient Romans look bad. They were remarkable people who built an incredible civilization with the tools and knowledge they had available. This is about acknowledging that comfort, safety, and convenience are relatively recent human inventions, and that time travel, however appealing it might sound after a particularly frustrating day at work, would probably leave you begging to come home within about 48 hours. Let's start with the basics and work our way up to the truly horrifying stuff, shall we? Picture yourself waking up in ancient Rome, and the first thing that hits you isn't the unfamiliar sounds or smells, but the simple fact that you have no idea what time it is. There are no clocks, no smartphones, no church bells ringing the hour, just the gradual lightening of the sky and your body's increasingly desperate need to use what Romans euphemistically call facilities. Your modern bladder, accustomed to convenient relief whenever the need arises, is about to encounter its first Roman reality check. If you're staying in a typical Roman apartment building, an insulae, your bathroom is not down the hall, it's not upstairs or downstairs, it's down the street, around the corner, and shared with approximately 200 of your new neighbours who have been using it since before dawn. The Roman public latrine is a social experience that would send most modern people into therapy. Imagine a long stone bench with holes cut in it, no privacy walls, no toilet paper, just a communal sponge on a stick that gets rinsed in running water between users, if you're lucky. Roman toilets are social gathering places where people conduct business, catch up on gossip, and discuss politics while conducting their most private bodily functions in full view of strangers. The Roman attitude toward privacy, particularly bodily privacy, exists on a completely different spectrum from modern expectations. What you consider intimate and personal, Romans consider perfectly normal community activities. But let's say you're wealthy enough to afford a domus with private facilities. Congratulations, you now have access to a latrine that's slightly more private but operates on the same basic principles. No toilet paper, questionable hygiene standards, and a direct connection to the Roman sewer system that occasionally backs up and floods your bathroom with other people's waste. Roman plumbing, while impressive for its time, has not solved the problems of water pressure, backflow prevention, or the basic physics of waste management that modern plumbing takes for granted. Your morning hygiene routine would be another source of culture shock that would leave you feeling grimy and uncomfortable for the rest of the day. Romans do bathe regularly, more regularly than many medieval Europeans, but their bathing practices differ significantly from modern standards. Roman soap, when it exists at all, is made from animal fat and ash, creating a product that's more abrasive than cleansing and leaves your skin feeling stripped and irritated. Roman toothbrushes don't exist. Romans clean their teeth, when they clean them at all, using frayed twigs twigs, rough cloths, or their fingers with various pastes made from ingredients that would horrify modern dentists. Crushed bones, oyster shells, and urine, which Romans believe has excellent whitening properties. The Roman smile, when you encounter it, often reveals teeth that are worn, discolored, and frequently missing, because Roman dentistry consists primarily of extraction and prayer. Roman personal hygiene products would challenge your modern sensibilities in ways that would make you nostalgic for the worst gas station bathroom you've ever encountered. Roman deodorant, if you can find it, is made from perfumed oils that mask rather than prevent body odor, creating layered scents that combine sweat, perfume, and the various aromatic oils that wealthy Romans used to demonstrate their sophistication. Roman clothing would present daily challenges that would make you appreciate elastic waistbands and machine-washable fabrics with religious fervor. Roman garments are made from wool, linen, or leather, depending on your social class and financial resources. These materials require constant maintenance that modern people have forgotten how to perform. Roman tunics and togas are not fitted garments in the modern sense. They're essentially rectangular pieces of fabric draped, pinned, and belted around your body in ways that require considerable skill to achieve properly. The Roman toga, in particular, is a 6-yard length of wool that must be wrapped around your body according to complex social protocols that indicate your status, occupation, and political affiliations. Getting dressed in a toga requires assistance from slaves or family members, and once properly arranged, the toga restricts your movement and requires constant adjustment to maintain its proper appearance. Roman women's clothing is equally challenging, involving multiple layers of undergarments, tunics, and outer robes that are held together with pins, brooches, and complex drapery techniques that would challenge a professional costume designer. Roman women spend considerable time each morning arranging their clothing and hair according to fashion standards that change regularly and require significant investment in accessories and styling tools. Roman laundry practices would horrify anyone accustomed to throwing dirty clothes in a washing machine and retrieving them clean and fresh-smelling 8 hours later. Roman laundry involves soaking clothes in urine, which Romans believe has excellent cleaning properties, then beating them with stones or wooden paddles to remove dirt and stains. The process is time-consuming, labor-intensive, and produces results that modern people would consider barely acceptable. Roman clothing colors come from natural dyes that fade quickly, stain easily, and require careful maintenance to preserve. Purple, the most prestigious color in Roman society, comes from murex shells and costs more than most people earn in a year. Your modern expectation of color-fast fabrics that maintain their appearance through multiple washings would be sadly disappointed by Roman textile technology. Roman footwear would leave your modern feet, accustomed to cushioned soles and arch support, in constant pain. Roman sandals and shoes are made from leather that's cut and sewn to basic patterns with minimal attention to foot anatomy or comfort. Roman roads, while excellently engineered for wheeled traffic, are paved with stones that transmit every impact directly to your feet through thin leather soles that provide no cushioning or shock absorption. Roman weather protection consists primarily of cloaks and capes that provide some protection from rain, but no protection from cold, wind, or the kind of persistent dampness that characterizes Roman winters. Your modern expectation of staying warm and dry in adverse weather would be constantly frustrated by Roman clothing technology that hasn't solved the basic problems of waterproofing and insulation. The Roman diet would present challenges that would leave you malnourished, uncomfortable, and possibly poisoned within a matter of days. Roman food safety standards, such as they are, rely on techniques that haven't solved the fundamental problems of contamination, spoilage, and adulteration that modern food safety regulations address. Roman bread, the foundation of the Roman diet, is often contaminated with impurities that range from harmless but unpleasant additions like sawdust and ground beans to dangerous adulterants like chalk and alum that can cause serious digestive problems. Roman bakers, operating without health department oversight, use whatever ingredients are available and affordable, regardless of their effect on consumer health. Roman meat, when you can afford it, comes from animals that are slaughtered, butchered, and sold without refrigeration or the sanitary practices that prevent bacterial contamination. Roman butchers operate in hot climates with no reliable way to keep meat fresh, leading to products that modern health inspectors would condemn immediately. Roman consumers develop tolerance for meat that tastes off because truly fresh meat is a luxury that only the wealthy can afford regularly. Roman dairy products present similar challenges, as milk and cheese are produced and stored without pasteurization or reliable refrigeration. Roman cheese-making techniques produce products that can be stored for extended periods, but the aging process often involves bacteria and molds that would horrify modern consumers accustomed to sterile, predictable dairy products. Roman water quality varies dramatically depending on location and source, with urban areas particularly vulnerable to contamination from human and animal waste. Roman aqueducts deliver water that's generally cleaner than local well water, but the distribution system uses lead pipes that leach toxic metals into the water supply. Romans address water safety concerns by mixing wine with their drinking water, creating beverages that provide some antimicrobial protection, but also ensure that most Romans are mildly intoxicated throughout the day. Roman food preservation techniques rely on salt, smoke, fermentation, and drying to prevent spoilage, producing foods with intense, unfamiliar flavors that modern palates would find challenging. Roman garum, the fermented fish sauce that appears in most Roman recipes, has a smell and taste that would clear most modern dinner tables. Roman preserved meats and vegetables acquire flavors through the preservation process that modern people would associate with spoilage rather than cuisine. Roman dining practices would challenge modern expectations of food safety and social comfort. Romans eat with their hands from common dishes, using bread or spoons to transfer food from serving vessels to their mouths. This communal eating style increases the risk of disease transmission while also creating social situations that would make most modern people uncomfortable. Roman banquets, the pinnacle of Roman dining culture, involve foods and practices that would challenge even adventurous modern eaters. Romans regularly consume animals that modern Western cultures consider inedible: dormice, peacock, flamingo, and various internal organs that are prepared and presented as delicacies. Roman banquet guests recline on couches while eating, a position that makes digestion difficult and spillage inevitable. Roman medical care would terrify anyone accustomed to modern healthcare standards and expectations. Roman physicians operate without knowledge of germ theory, anesthesia, or antiseptic practices, relying on theories about bodily humors and treatments that often cause more harm than the original condition. Roman surgery, when it's attempted, involves procedures performed without anesthesia, using instruments that haven't been sterilized. Roman surgical techniques include bloodletting, trepanation, and various operations that are performed based on theoretical knowledge rather than practical understanding of anatomy and physiology. Surgical survival rates reflect the primitive state of Roman medical knowledge and the absence of infection control practices. Roman dental care, as mentioned earlier, consists primarily of extraction and prayer. Roman dentists, such as they are, remove teeth that cause pain, but lack the tools and techniques to perform restorative procedures. Roman dental problems, caused by diets high in coarse grains that wear down teeth and lack of preventive care, result in tooth loss that begins early and progresses throughout life. Roman pharmacology relies on herbal remedies and preparations that may or may not have therapeutic value. Roman physicians prescribe treatments based on traditional knowledge and theoretical frameworks that often contradict observable reality. Roman patients who seek medical care often receive treatments that are useless at best and harmful at worst. Roman childbirth and infant care reflect the harsh realities of life in a world without modern medical knowledge and intervention. Roman women give birth without medical assistance, pain relief, or sanitary conditions that prevent infection. Infant mortality rates reflect the dangers of childbirth and early childhood in environments where minor illnesses can be fatal. Roman mental health care doesn't exist in any form that modern people would recognize. Romans who suffer from mental illness, developmental disabilities, or psychological trauma receive treatment based on religious or philosophical frameworks that attribute their conditions to moral failings or supernatural influences. Roman life expectancy reflects the cumulative impact of poor nutrition, disease, workplace hazards, and lack of medical care that characterizes daily life for most Romans. The average Roman who survives childhood can expect to live to approximately 45 years, with death typically resulting from diseases or conditions that modern medicine treats routinely. Roman working conditions would violate every workplace safety regulation that modern societies have developed to protect workers from injury, illness, and death. Roman construction workers operate without safety equipment, fall protection, or workplace safety regulations that prevent predictable accidents. Roman construction sites are littered with workers who have been injured or killed by falling stones, collapsing scaffolding, and equipment failures that could be prevented through basic safety measures. Roman industrial work, including mining, metalworking, and pottery production, exposes workers to toxic materials and dangerous processes without protective equipment or safety protocols. Roman miners develop lung diseases from breathing stone dust and toxic fumes, while Roman metalworkers suffer burns and injuries from working with molten metals and high-temperature processes. Roman agricultural work involves manual labor that would challenge the strongest modern workers, using tools and techniques that maximize human effort rather than mechanical advantage. Roman farmers work from dawn to dusk, performing tasks that modern machinery completes in minutes, using wooden and iron tools that require enormous physical effort to operate effectively. Roman transportation presents daily challenges that would exhaust modern people accustomed to mechanized travel. Roman roads, while excellently engineered, are designed for foot traffic and animal-drawn vehicles that travel at walking speed. A journey that modern people complete in hours by car requires days or weeks of walking, riding in uncomfortable wagons, or traveling by ship with no reliable schedule or safety equipment. Roman urban transportation consists primarily of walking through streets that are crowded, noisy, and frequently blocked by construction, commerce, and the various activities of urban life. Roman cities are not designed for efficient movement of large numbers of people, resulting in traffic congestion that would frustrate modern commuters accustomed to predictable travel times. Roman personal security presents constant challenges in societies where law enforcement is minimal and personal protection depends on social connections and economic resources. Roman cities include areas where crime is common and violence is accepted as part of daily life. Romans develop personal security practices that include traveling in groups, avoiding certain areas after dark, and maintaining relationships with people who can provide protection when needed. Roman legal protection, while sophisticated in theory, operates according to principles that would frustrate modern people accustomed to equal treatment under law. Roman justice depends heavily on social status, personal connections, and the ability to pay for legal representation. Romans who lack wealth and social connections often receive treatment in legal matters that modern people would consider grossly unfair. Roman social interactions follow complex protocols that govern behavior according to age, gender, social class, and family relationships. Modern people, accustomed to relatively egalitarian social relationships, would struggle to navigate Roman social hierarchies that require constant attention to status markers and behavioral expectations. Roman privacy, or lack thereof, would challenge modern people accustomed to personal space and private time. Roman houses and apartments provide limited privacy, with multiple generations and social groups sharing small spaces where personal activities are conducted in full view of others. Roman social life involves constant interaction with neighbours, family members, and community members in ways that would exhaust modern people who value solitude and personal space. Roman leisure activities, while providing entertainment and social interaction, require physical participation and social skills that modern people may lack. Roman games, sports, and entertainment assume physical fitness and competitive abilities that sedentary modern lifestyles don't develop. Roman environmental conditions would challenge modern people accustomed to climate control and pollution regulation. Roman cities are dirty, smelly, and noisy in ways that modern environmental standards don't permit. Roman air quality suffers from cooking fires, industrial activities, and animal waste that create atmospheric conditions that would violate modern pollution standards. Roman seasonal variations in temperature, daylight, and weather create living conditions that modern people, accustomed to artificial lighting and climate control, would find difficult to tolerate. Roman winters are cold, dark, and uncomfortable for people who lack adequate heating and lighting, while Roman summers are hot and oppressive for people who lack air conditioning and reliable water supplies. Roman natural disasters, including floods, earthquakes, fires, and disease outbreaks, create emergency conditions that modern disaster preparedness and response systems are designed to address. Romans face natural disasters with limited resources and no coordinated response systems, resulting in catastrophic losses of life and property that modern emergency management practices prevent. Roman information access would frustrate modern people accustomed to instant information and global communication. Roman news travels at the speed of human messengers, creating information delays that leave Romans ignorant of important events for weeks or months. Roman libraries and educational resources serve only wealthy elites, leaving most Romans without access to information that modern people consider basic and essential. Roman entertainment, while sophisticated and elaborate, requires passive observation rather than the interactive experience experiences that modern people expect. Roman theatrical performances, gladiatorial games, and public spectacles are scheduled according to political and religious calendars rather than consumer demand, leaving Romans with limited entertainment options that may not match personal preferences or schedules. Roman education, available only to wealthy families, provides training in subjects and skills that have limited practical application in modern contexts. Roman educational methods emphasize memorization and recitation rather than critical thinking and problem-solving skills that modern educational systems prioritize. Roman economic security depends on personal relationships and social connections rather than institutional protections that modern people rely upon. Romans who lose their jobs, become disabled, or face family emergencies have limited resources beyond what family members and social networks can provide. Roman society lacks social safety nets that modern people expect as basic rights and protections. Roman political participation, limited to male citizens of appropriate social status, excludes most of the population from decision-making processes that affect their lives. Romans who lack citizenship rights, including women, slaves, and foreign residents, have no voice in political decisions and no legal recourse when government actions harm their interests. Roman religious obligations require regular participation in ceremonies and rituals that consume time and resources, while providing benefits that modern people would question. Roman religious practice emphasizes community participation and ritual correctness rather than personal spiritual development, creating obligations that may conflict with personal beliefs or preferences. Roman social mobility, while possible, requires navigating complex social hierarchies and accumulating resources through methods that modern people would find difficult or objectionable. Romans who seek social advancement must develop skills in political manipulation, military service, and economic exploitation that modern ethical standards discourage. Roman family relationships operate according to legal frameworks that grant enormous authority to male family heads, while limiting the rights and freedoms of other family members. Roman wives, children, and extended family members lack legal protections that modern people consider fundamental human rights. Roman gender relationships follow patterns that would challenge modern people accustomed to gender equality and individual rights. Roman women, regardless of intelligence, education, or ability, face legal and social restrictions that limit their opportunities for personal and professional development. Roman slavery, an integral part of Roman economic and social life, would horrify modern people accustomed to human rights protections and legal equality. Romans participate in systems of human exploitation that modern international law considers crimes against humanity. Roman attitudes toward violence, both personal and institutional, reflect societies where physical force is an accepted method of resolving disputes and maintaining social order. Romans regularly witness and participate in violence that modern societies work to eliminate through legal and social institutions. Roman environmental degradation, resulting from industrial activities and urban concentration, creates living conditions that modern environmental protection laws are designed to prevent. Roman cities suffer from air and water pollution, waste disposal problems, and resource depletion that modern environmental science recognizes as threats to human health and ecological stability. In conclusion, while ancient Rome represents one of history's most remarkable civilizations, the daily reality of Roman life would challenge modern people in ways that would make them appreciate the comforts, conveniences, and protections that modern societies provide. The gap between Roman and modern living standards reflects centuries of technological, medical, and social progress that modern people often take for granted, but represents enormous improvements in human welfare and quality of life. Life in ancient Rome, for all its historical fascination and cultural significance, would remind modern people that progress, while sometimes slow and imperfect, has created living conditions that our ancestors could hardly imagine and would certainly envy.